I'm sure you'll have to remind me if you. Good morning. Let's begin this month's meeting of the Somerville Tree Protection Board. The first order of business is to approve, excuse me, the minutes from the last meeting. Is there any discussion, correction, thoughts?
I move to approve as submitted.
Motion approved. No old business, then we move to new business. 106 Shenandoah. Is there anyone here that represents that property? We're talking about a fairly good sized red oak and a small maple on the side of the street that wish to be removed. Anybody want to comment about? Let's comment about the maple first. In the fucking forefront.
Well, it's a maple and in my estimation in pretty bad shape. I see right at the what looks to be maybe a former joint where it's discolored and I wonder if perhaps there might be decay underneath. But red maples as a rule, as street trees, which this one is, just have not performed well on the low country. They get gloomy worms as well as some other problems. They're relatively thin skinned. So I have no problems with removing the maple.
Yeah, I agree with Danny on that. Looks like that section there on the trunk could be a weak section anyway. And then you got a lot of the canopy that's on the street side that's kind of putting some extra weight. And I think that's gonna eventually be a problem there, so removal would be okay with me as well.
I agree. Okay. Okay, let's move on to the red oak. Show additional photos of that. That's a good one right there. I believe it's 12.5 feet from the foundation. It shows a large root emerging from the tree heading straight toward the porch. It has raised up the bluestone path. And as I recall, Bill helped me with this, was a crack in the foundation as well of the porch. Right. Okay, I'm thinking of another house then. It was, okay. So other than that, my estimation is a perfectly healthy tree. It has good form for a neighborhood because all the branch angles are upward in an acceptable fashion, leading to not be as prone to breakage as another conformation. The problem is its proximity to the house and what it already has done. I wish the owner were here because I had some thoughts about the possibility, and it's a more economic possibility if it's has a positive result, and that is to examine the possibility of not excavating in a horrible way, to examine the root patterns of the tree as it approaches the foundation, removing the one that obviously has challenged the foundation, and any others would be less harmed in terms of their size and closeness to the tree roots, that is, if they were going into the foundation. And then a barrier could be placed. All that would still be less than what it would take to cut the tree down. But those are my thoughts, and so I need to stop. Danny?
No, and I agree. I'm not. It's hard for me to make a firm decision about removal until I know exactly what's going on with that root system. If it's one root that's causing a problem with the walkway, then that can easily be remedied. But if it's more complex and if removing so many roots is going to endanger the tree, then certainly we'd need to reconsider the tree's removal. But I would like to, if it's possible, to have someone inspect the root system and make a judgment. Have a certified arborist inspect the root system and make a judgment, or at least to see photographs of it exposed before I make a decision.
Is there another photo that shows the disruption of the stone walkway more closely? It's more obvious that when we're on the ground, and
Yeah, first comment on the thing was going under the foundation.
right, well, that could be eliminated as we've been discussing.
Well, and do we know that that is indeed the case? I mean, a lot of homeowners, I mean, people who are not familiar with how the root system of trees grow might see the damage to the stones or something, and then assume that it's underneath the house and causing damage. But if they have that if they know that for sure, then that the foundation has been damaged, and that perhaps is another issue to consider.
I just don't remember seeing a whole lot of foundation cracking there.
Right.
Seemed like there might have been a crack in the top surface of the porch area, but that was about it. But that facing wall.
Right.
But I think it's a great idea just to have someone go in there and take a closer look and make sure that it's the root that's causing the issue and not something else. And, certified arborist would certainly be the way to go. Then they could come back with a recommendation. If they feel like it's a serious threat.
Anything to add, Sig?
I think we could make a move that we allow the removal of tree 2 and delay the decision on tree 1 until we know more.
I second that.
Okay, the motion passes. Any more discussion? All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes. The next order of business is oh, 416 Glen Eagle Drive, I'm sorry. Anybody here to represent that?
Y'all, can you make sure you have your mics on and you're talking into them when you're making comments? Thank you.
They are not coming in loud.
Okay, I'll
I
get a little
just-
closer. Is that better?
They can get really loud if you get too close.
And I took care of that.
Bill, do you want to, I didn't say anything the first time. Would you like to say anything about the trees, please?
It's 2 oak trees in the backyard. They are roots growing out into the yard. But health wise, the trees are very healthy trees. They don't have any, dieback in the crown or anything, or any, weak spots in them or rot or anything, cavities.
Why did you want to have these trees removed, sir?
Thank you. Yes, thank you both. Thank you all for your time. We've lived at that house for the last 14 years and both of those oak trees have continued to grow toward the house each year. And the reason is that, as you can see, there are trees behind them, so they can't go the other way. And those, the trees behind them are getting the sun. And so what inspired us to think we should probably take them down, particularly, well, 2, they're getting 1 and 2, they're getting closer to the house every year. Eventually, if they were to fall, I think they would fall on our house. But in the last 2 years, tree number 2 in that picture has been dropping clumps of dead branches and leaves, which Mr. Salisbury, I think, said was a possible blight. I don't know what a tree blight is, but it was, the signs didn't look good to us for sure. So that's why we've asked to take them down. If the board doesn't agree to do both of them, I would ask that perhaps you would consider at least number 2. That's the one that's dropping the branches and the dead leaves. And it's also the one that probably is the greatest threat to the house because its branches are hanging over much farther. So that's our reason. And again, thank you for your time. I'm sorry I wasn't able to be there when you all came to the house.
Okay, sometimes it's hard to do.
But I have a question, sir. Have you, given that there's been some questions about the health of the tree that is dropping, has a certified arborist or a qualified arborist inspected the tree for you to determine what might be causing it?
No, sir. We have-
Okay, okay.
Thank you.
And you've had no tree work done on these at all as far as pruning out dead branches or anything like that? Nothing's been done at all?
No, sir.
Okay.
Well, we looked at them and they are quite healthy. And I have to first say that there is a need for some corrective pruning. There always is over time. But these are willow oaks and they're hard as rock. But the fear of them falling on your house is very remote. They're not gonna snap either. The biggest thing would happen to them is they would lean over slowly in a hurricane if the ground were wet enough. They're very strong and tough trees. They're being allowed to grow or being forced to grow in a certain direction. They're assisted, their growth is assisted in that way, but again, to get a certified arborist to come in and do some corrective pruning, they would be very helpful. I did not see them as a threat to the house over time. Again, but nothing is static. Sometimes issues arise when you need to get someone in a tree and start cutting branches out, and there's nothing wrong with that. As far as any evidence of blight or any kind of pathology, we surely didn't see that. Be honest, I wasn't aware of that assertion. But we did look at them pretty hard. And I don't see them as a threat to your house. But assistance would make you probably even feel better with some corrective pruning and advice of a certified arborist. Thank you. So, is there a motion?
Yeah, I move to deny the request to remove either tree.
I agree. Second.
We have a motion. Any more discussion?
Sir, you could come back later if things change. You are certainly allowed to come back and we can address this again.
All those in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion passes. Thank you for coming. Next order of business is 819 West First North Street. Is there a representative for that property?
She's having an operation this morning, so I'm just gonna be speaking on her behalf, my grandmother, and my name is Christina Denson.
Is she the resident of the,
She's the resident.
okay,
Basically, there are 6 gum trees she's looking to get removed. They're very flimsy, like we get a strong wind and they start bowing and waving in the wind. Lots of branches fall all the time. She's elderly, so they also have those spiky balls.
Yep.
Fall.
sweet gum balls?
Yeah, that fall in her yard and they are a trip hazard. Particularly tree number 3 is leaning towards her bedroom where her bed is right at the window. And the tree over the years is just leaning more and more. And also the trees are destroying the foundation of her home. And the cement walkway or the cement area where her storage shed is, the cement is cracking, as you can see in the pictures in that area. And I believe some of the trees on the side of her house are possibly in an alleyway that are supposed to be maintained by the town, but they haven't been. Any questions for me? I think I hit all their points.
Well, we've all seen the trees and we've seen the pictures in front of us and so Claude, thoughts?
How long have the roots of the trees been an issue with the foundation of the house? Any idea on that?
I'd say at least the past 10 years.
Okay, and it's progressively gotten worse.
Yeah. It's just cracks all over the house, each different way you go and look, there's cracks all over.
Okay,
And obviously she's elderly, she can't afford to lose her house. And she's had to have her floor raised up because of the cracking. She's had to have it done about 3 or 4 times.
When you say the floor raised up, I mean in the interior of the?
Yeah.
And
To
then
raise it up.
that's throughout the house on both
Mhm.
sides of the house where the trees are located.
Yeah,
Okay,
particularly the side where I'm not sure what those tree 1 and 2 are, particularly in that side. She's had to have it raised twice.
okay. Yeah, I did notice some pretty good cracks over there. When you say maintenance on those trees in the alleyway, What kind of maintenance are you referring to that needs to be done there?
I believe it should have had some trimming done on them. But that hasn't been done.
Would that alleviate the problem with those trees as some trimming were done to them?
I think it would help those ones because the branches fall directly on her roof
Mhm.
because they're so close to her house
Right.
for those trees right there.
Yeah, that's pretty busy back in the back there with those three trees, 4, 5, and 6 altogether. And there's definitely some pruning that could be done. The most favorable tree of that group is tree number 6, which I'm not inclined to want to remove. But I sure see a mighty big branch coming out to them. When those come to remove any trees, if they do, then that surely would be attended to, could be attended to and take some of the worry out of that on tree number 6. That's the one that's furthest away from the house.
And number 4 is kind of leading towards the house.
Yeah, the roots are really busy there, as I recall, and they're, it's very close to the house.
Number 4 that had top broke out of it also.
Yes,
Takes some time.
so. That's my feeling about those 3 trees. As far as 1 and 2. I wish the cracks would have been more demonstrable in line with the trees. We always have, as you've been hearing, we deal with this issue a lot about, is the root really cracking the foundation, or is it just, a lot of these cracks, as I recall, are not basally oriented. They're sort of further up the brick somewhere, implying another issue maybe, a construction issue that wasn't done properly. But now that you talk about raising the floor, I wasn't aware of that. I'm not sure what that entailed, but if
And
it's,
you can see for trees number 2 particularly, when you're walking on the ground, you can see the roots going.
oh yeah,
down to
we
the
saw
ground.
them, but I don't think they're anywhere as challenging as 4 and 5 on the other side of the house.
Yeah.
That was just,
Yeah, but number 2 right there has the roots going back over there to the porch. Got porch all cracked up also.
Right.
I have a picture of the porch there.
okay,
You do.
is that what that is? Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So I'm curious, I'm trying to understand the relationship, how tree roots might have caused enough foundation problem to cause the floors to have to be raised. Do you have any idea what?
These trees have been there and the house has been there since 1940.
Uh-huh.
So I guess just over time. But when you're walking in her yard, like around trees 1 and 2, you see the roots going up to the house.
Oh, absolutely. I'm not disputing that at all. I was trying to figure out if there was if you knew why the relationship of why the tree roots might have caused the floor to be raised 4 times. I've never heard of that. That's why I'm curious. Okay. I understand. And before we leave this subject and regardless of the way this board votes, let me ask you to share this with your grandmother. And that is the fact that trees sway and move in the wind is a good thing. They're genetically coded to do that, to move in the wind and not break.
As long
So-
as it doesn't fall on our house. It's
No, I understand. That is what helps them not to fall on the house. is
Yeah.
When the trunks move and sway, they're not breaking and they're not coming up at the roots. But anyway, I just thought that was just an aside you might share with your grandmother, if it might make her feel better.
There's some trees that are brittle and will break. That's not one of them. And that's good. That's good. Pine trees sway and that's good. And people worry about it, but it's a healthy thing.
Aren't pine trees stronger than gum trees?
Some,
Well,
I think
Every
gum trees
tree.
are pretty flimsy, especially after Hugo, they had several gum trees fall.
those don't look flimsy.
Yeah.
If you come out when it's raining one day, you would see it swaying in the wind waving at you. It's not a very settling feeling when it's your house that it would destroy if it fell.
Well, I understand. I was living here during Hugo.
Mm.
It was a scary time.
Yeah.
And we all lost trees but we survived. and we still have trees. The tree number 2 is quite some distance from the house. And when tree roots get that far away, they're usually not that big.
I don't have a comment on that.
Okay. Well, that's what sort of people are thinking that, or could be that, and that is true. They're continually tapering as they go further away. And, but these are a challenge, to the house. So I don't have the same problem with tree number 3. I feel similarly about it. It's leaning a little bit, but the thing that happens this week comes more than anything else, unless you're talking about a Hurricane Hugo, and then, you know, we can't predict a category 4 or 5 hurricane damage. We can't correct for it in an anticipatory way. But more than likely, it's branches that come out of a sweet gum during a good thunderstorm, and not the whole tree coming down, or snapping in half. So I'd like to make a motion that we permit trees 1, 2, 4, and 5 to be removed, and 3 and 6 to remain.
Yeah, I can second that.
And do you guys have an opinion on trees 3 and 6 having preventative pruning done on them?
Definitely. Particularly number 6, because it's got a big old branch coming out the side that it doesn't need anymore. And we're not challenged the health of the tree. And it is probably the most imposing one with respect to its aspect toward the house.
Yeah, number 3 tree, you can probably take some of the weight off that side that it's leaning on, kind of remove some of that weight that may be an issue
Same
there.
principle as
Yep.
with 6, yeah.
And you could get a teenager to come rake up some of these gumballs, particularly after, if you have some,
Teenagers don't want to work.
Yeah, we've heard that.
well, do you have a rake?
I do.
We
Okay,
still
then.
rake ours. So there's a motion on the floor. Any more discussion? Approved motion on the floor. Is there any more discussion? All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you. Mr. Yakis.
Morning.
Good morning.
Morning.
Tell us a little about the trees.
Well, we have those 2 gum trees growing in the back of the yard there. Want to have both of them removed. They have huge root systems, as you I guess you know and have seen. A lot of them are growing under my shed. They're right up to the bottom of the base of that. They're also growing a lot behind the shed and out into the yard. They grow. I keep removing those as they come to the surface. The ones that aren't too big. Also have the gumballs are a big problem. We have a long season with the gumballs and have a lot of grandkids. We like to play sports out there and pitch a football and soccer and whatnot. Have little swimming pools out there for all the kids, and whenever they come over, it takes quite a job to get them out of the yard and dig them up with a rake, and a lot of times have the boys police out there with buckets and try to get them all out, but still it's quite an inconvenience. When I try to pick them up with the lawnmower with the bag on the back, and it does tear up the lawnmower pretty good too. Pretty much have to replace the blade every couple of years. But anyhow, they're just pretty much of a nuisance as far as quality of life.
As far as the health of the tree, Bill, in your opinion?
It was very healthy and, anything health-wise wrong. And the 2 sheds back there are prefab sheds that don't have a foundation. So look at that also.
Mhm. Well,
How many other trees do you have there in the backyard? I'm just thinking
I've
about
got 7 trees in my yard, other than those 2.
all canopy trees, or can you tell me
The
what
big
kind they
live
are?
oak, near the house.
Right.
And then there's 2, I call them water maples on the other side. And, one other one in that other corner, 2 pine trees. That's 7, 1, 2, 3. I guess there's 2 other ones together back in the corner, on the side. So I got quite a bit of shade, but we like the trees, but those things are just, the issue.
There are a few things that we have that don't require maintenance. I mean, cleaning up after the gumballs, or pruning the trees, pruning shrubs, mowing the grass, everything has got to have maintenance.
Oh,
And,
yeah, I know about that because of that live oak tree.
and,
What a job that is.
but it's beautiful when we get it, when you
Yes,
get
I
it
love it.
done.
Yeah, you forgot to mention that too. That's an outstanding tree. Don't forget to blow that crotch with the blower.
Pardon?
Don't forget to blow that crotch in the tree
Yeah,
with the blower. to
I
get
already
the-
did that.
Okay, good.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, we love that tree.
I think we also just mentioned the fact that you can inject the trees with a chemical to kind of
Yeah, I think.
keep it from producing. yeah.
He had mentioned that to me, yeah.
Is that a possibility for you? Would you be willing to look into doing something like that?
Is that really something that's that feasible?
Uh,
Or what's
yeah.
involved with that?
They work really good. I don't know how much it costs.
I've heard that too. I've heard a lot of people tell me that. I really don't know what is involved with that. Like, would I have to hire an arborist to?
Well, you'd have to learn how to do it yourself, either one. I think you have to go a little hole, little tiny holes, and you stick the cartridges in there. And they feed, something to keep the cones from, the seed from, developing on the tree. You have to do that in the early fall of spring before right at about the time the tree puts out a leaf on it. Just before that, the timing you have, so you would have to maybe get somebody to do it, make sure you have to do it. Austin Landscape Supply was telling us about the chemical and the people doing it. So Bill and Scribner is on the radio on Saturday mornings.
Yeah, a lot of times they tell you how to do the things.
Yeah.
They don't tell you when because that's their business.
Yeah.
Secret of the businesses. Same as I thought before about the bugs and molar crickets and all that stuff. They tell you how to do it,
Yeah.
but they don't tell you the week. It's gotta be done. Otherwise,
A lot harder.
many hundreds of dollars later, I've learned that lesson many times over. I don't know how to put down insecticides.
No, it's,
But anyhow,
Yeah, but
Well,
so I guess we could try.
Our problem is we're not disciplined enough to know when it's not on our radar. You know, where they have a
Yeah.
calendar of when to do it.
And they also watch the weather, and weather patterns, all that kind of stuff. Not just first week of June or.
No, it's not.
So,
if you decide to go that route, if you decide to go that route, either Clemson Extension or the South Carolina Forestry Commission, neither has a financial interest in,
Right.
in it. So they would just give you the straight skinny on when to do it. And both of them would probably be glad to advise
Also,
if you decide to go that way.
yeah, sure.
also taking that route would be a lot less expensive than removing 2 trees.
That's true.
So we're looking out for you.
any other discussion?
Well, I have to say, Bill, you or Claude, you may have, I have not read many good positive reports about suppressing the root ball growth on sweet gums. I mean, I haven't read horribly negative things, but I've never read anything that said that, yeah, this works and even spraying Floratel in the buds. But I don't know, y'all may have read something that I don't.
Yeah, and I haven't bothered to look over to read on it. If it's,
Whenever David said something about while we were looking at trees one day, we called, Lance Scribner and talked to him about it. He said that he
That it does, okay, well, I stand corrected. I just, where I was, well, but Bill is for the most part, a good, honest person, so. But at any rate,
This is for female flower interference, or it goes beyond that to fertilization of the embryo, do you know? Okay. I haven't read about it, but I've certainly heard about it.
I think the timing on the application is so critical
Yeah.
in trying to find that window is pretty difficult. So it's probably best to have a professional do it. But even then, I don't know what your guarantees are or what percentage of root balls, not root balls, sweet gum balls you're gonna be eliminating by that process. So,
Some years are worse than other years.
Yes,
oh, absolutely.
Just for whatever reason, I'm not sure how that works. Somebody's talking about once every 7 years. It's worse than other years, but I'm not
I've got
sure.
one in my front yard, so
I'm not
I
sure.
understand.
I agree that the root system is pretty imposing and those trees are not. They're not young, but they have years in their life. Yeah, and I think tree number 2 roots were challenging the shed fairly significantly. I would be inclined to allow removal of number 2 and leave number 1. That'd do 2 things. It would relieve the stress on the shed and it would cut down the sweet gum balls by 50%. And so I'm prepared to make a motion to that extent, unless
I second that motion. I think that's a good idea.
the motion passed. Any more discussion? All in favor of the motion to remove tree number 2? And I hope that's correct. Is tree number 2 the one closest to the shed?
They're both pretty close.
But you could see the roots definitely emanating from number 2.
One is actually, I think from here, one is.
Okay, then I misstated. I think it's whichever one is obvious, it has this majority of the roots challenging the shed are from this one tree, and when it was just hidden right that way. It was actually making contact with the base of the shed, as I recall.
Peter, I'll go flying tree.
Okay. Okay, then the motion that we reread that the tree most challenging the shed be removed and the one to the other side be saved. And we have a second. All those in favor of the motion? All opposed, say nay. Motion passes.
If you investigate the possibility of injection these trees to prevent the formation of the gumballs, you might want to inject both of them and maybe even delay removal of a tree. If you're going to inject one, why not go ahead and get the other one?
Okay. Well, thank you.
Got lots of things to think about. Yes.
It'd be good for 6 months and get a 6-month extension on it, too, so if you want to try something like that. To make it permanent good for a year from now. Okay. So then go ahead, mark the tree. Yeah, I'll probably. If you want. I'll probably wait for this. I want to do that. Try that in spring and the permit would still be good for you. Okay, thank you. All right. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Next order of business is 209 Winter Drive. Good morning.
Morning.
Good morning.
I'm the property manager of Summer Village that the tree is located at. And basically it's uprooting the home, the roots are, and I know that we've already tried to get a permit twice. And so we had the certified arborist look at it and we agreed that it should possibly come down. I do know that the tenant had said that it's even uprooting, like she can, like in the kitchen part, but I know that we were told that we could move the home, but that's thousands and thousands of dollars to move the home. And then we are faced with the setbacks of the home for the lot. So That's why I'm here today to see what they'll say.
Bill, what's your take on the tree? We've seen this before, but
Well, a healthy tree, yes, the mobile homes park right next to it. Mobile homes does not have a foundation, is where our argument. This is the first time anybody's shown up to talk to us about it. Out of 3 meetings, 3 times going to tree committee. We were, one of them that recommended cleaning up and the skirt, cutting the skirt back and getting it back straight, and that never has been done. Nobody's ever tried to do any of the recommendations with the board.
Yeah, I'm new, so that's why.
Okay, so, it's, kind of frustrating, y'all
Yes.
haven't tried to even do anything to just keep coming back to tree committee.
Yeah, when Planet Green came out, and then I was under the impression that he showed up to the last meeting. Then that's when they told us that we needed the arborist, and then that's when we did that, and then I was contacted for this meeting, and then
Is the mobile home. When you say that the tree roots are upsetting the foundation, what is the foundation of the mobile home? What is it on?
no, it's not on a foundation. I mean, like, it's uprooting like the house, like they said that they can like fill it in the kitchen. I'm going by what the tenant.
No, I understand. So,
But I don't think it's on a foundation.
no, my recollection of mobile homes is that usually they sit on concrete block piers and then they're tied down. So if a tree root from this live oak is upsetting one or two of those piers, that's easily remedied by finding the root and cutting it off and putting some sort of barrier in. And I take a great deal of issue with your consulting arborist opinion about this. It doesn't make any sense scientifically. I mean, and she's not here to discuss it with, and I would be happy to do that in the future, but she contends that the fact that the roots are underneath the trailer makes the tree unstable, and that's just wildly not true. So it's not, her opinion is not a great one, but what you might show us is that if a certified arborist can say with photographs for sure, there are so many roots of this tree that are upsetting this mobile home that they something needs to happen. They can prune the roots, but there's no need to remove that incredibly large live oak tree because of that, because it's not unsettling that floor the way people are saying. It's just, I don't think it can be happening.
if it was as challenging to the undercarriage of the trailer, surely we could be provided with photos. We're not allowed to go crawl under there and
Yeah,
look.
we didn't get under there.
Huh?
We didn't get under there.
No. But yeah, the removal of the skirt is, I've seen it twice because I was on tree committee back for the first visit, but no effort has been made, as Bill pointed out, to fix that skirt to just see. The assertions made in the letter, I agree with our arborist that they're just almost fanciful, because if there was a slab there, that's a whole different thing. That's a foundation, and that would be obstructing and compromising root growth, but those roots are free to grow and come out the other side. Granted, not the best situation, but we didn't put the trailer there, someone else did, and it's a magnificent tree, needs some pruning work. The arborist made reference to that too, in some degree that's true, but it's incredibly healthy willow oak, and we would need to see more effort to demonstrate its potential harm to that trailer before we could ever approve removing a tree like that. That's perfectly healthy.
Also, you mentioned the idea of moving the trailer to another location, because there are some vacant lots throughout that neighborhood, right, that you can move it to, perhaps?
I do have one lot, yes, sir.
Okay, but I know you said the thousands and thousands of dollars, but to remove the tree would be an awful lot of money to do that as well. So you may want to think about, one versus the other, if that's a possibility. I would certainly give that some consideration.
Any more discussion? Can I have a motion?
I move to deny the approval, of the removal of the live oak tree on Winter Drive.
I second it.
Motion is approved. All those in favor of the motion,
Aye.
all those opposed, say nay. The tree will remain. Thank you. One oh four, 104 Guilford Drive. I know Mrs. Collette is not here today. It's getting fewer people, which obviously isn't in here. We had a good discussion with her about her situation. Bill, you want to kick in to start with?
So your, tree one and tree two are very healthy trees. They had an irrigation system, you want back close to better and stuff put in real close to them and it attract those. The water meter seemed to be over further from the trees and, but I think it was over 10 feet, wasn't it?
Yeah.
12 feet or something like that. I
Yep.
didn't write that down. Tree three has codominant leaders and one on is leaning back towards her house. That was one of her concerns of it being, for child bedroom, I know that it had extruded bark in there too. Tree number four was the one in the backyard and it had sidewalk lifting up and it was very close to the back of the house back there. And written down here, it had some damage in the top, but it's grown back. And 5 and 6 were small pine trees that were under the power lines that had top cut.
Thanks, Bill. Discussion?
I think with that tree number 3, that was the codominant, right? Yeah, that one, I think that could be a problem. I would like to see that one removed. And then certainly the trees under the power lines, those two removed as well. They don't look good and they're going to continue to be an issue for those utility lines. 1 and 2, I think we need to kind of leave those where they are for now until they kind of finish up doing what they are doing with the irrigation. They seem to be healthy and I don't see them being a problem. Tree number 4, it is close to the house and it is causing some issues with that patio back there. Bill, remind me, you said the top had been broken out sometime.
That was what my notes said. There's a picture of it right there.
Looks like it could have been.
Yeah, sure. And everybody says the pine trees won't recover when the top gets knocked out. Take a look.
So I didn't see this one, but the root damage or the damage to the concrete, was that on the patio itself or the walkway? Is the walk, because that's what I think that's what the application says. So my question is that if the damage is to the walkway, could that root not be removed without putting the rest of the tree at risk? And either, I mean, you could come back closer to the tree, away from the sidewalk, or replace that part of the sidewalk, and the patio would stay unharmed unless there's potential for major damage there. That's a question to the rest of the.
Well, it's another opportunity to be able to examine the real challenges to the foundation of the house. And again, we spoke earlier about, air spades and ways to determine whether the roots are traveling in that direction and they can be dealt with. Otherwise, the tree's pretty healthy. I mean, it's had a lot of pruning on it. It looks to me like that is an old natural pruning. It's a lonesome crown, but it's a healthy crown. You agree?
From the photograph looks like it is pretty healthy. Yeah, I mean, it's. I guess I would need to know when the top was blown out to say, yes, it's very healthy or extremely healthy or not. But it appears to be relatively healthy. It's got good taper and a decent crown, that's supplying nutrient to the tree. So I think the tree is relatively healthy. I just wonder about that root. If it has to be removed, then I think there are enough other trees on the lot that we are saving that might be there, then I wouldn't have major heartburn if it's removed, but I would just wonder if it's a possibility to save it. If it were my tree on my property, I'd be looking to see if I could save it.
If a root is, excuse me, is causing problems with the walkway, that one root could be pruned. Or they could also, if you're certainly aware, in town, we've had trees that would lift a sidewalk, and they would come along and shave part of that sidewalk off, and then the tree would be fine. And I thought that was wonderful to them be able to do that. And certainly that's less expensive than removing a tree. I don't know how they might be able to arrange that, but I bet they could. And again, it would cost a heck of a lot less than removal of a tree.
One other part of the discussion, going back to the front of the yard, the owner did say that they weren't fixing the irrigation system until we decided to fade the tree. So it wasn't as if there was a desperate need to remove the trees. It was wanted to evaluate how we would decide, and they would fix the irrigation system accordingly. And so I didn't feel like there was an overwhelming need by the property owner to remove those trees, simply the inconvenience of
Right.
proximity to the watering system. Do I have a motion?
Yeah, motion to allow removal of tree 3, 5, and 6. And leave the remaining trees. And possibly root pruning on number 4 to allow that. And also leave tree 1 and 2, let those remain as well.
So leave 1, 2, and 4.
Yep.
3, 5, and 6 removed.
Right.
I second that.
And with a recommendation.
Right.
That they look at the root system of tree number 4.
Right. And the possibility of shaving the sidewalk if, they just investigate that.
Any more discussion? All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion passes. Mr. and Mrs. Green at 201 Angora Way. Hi.
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 Had a couple tree this year, and he's on up a limb about this big that was live, that busted the siding on the house right at our bedroom window. And it's dropped a lot of dead limbs throughout the year. And it has a forehead. And a part of it comes down, it comes up in our bedroom.
Bill, you want to add anything to the observation of the tree?
This is one of the required trees for the lot, so they would have to mitigate if it
I
were.
understand.
We've
removed.
already planted 3 trees in the yard, and I have 3 young trees started. We planted a maple, an oak, and a crepe myrtle in the backyard.
Bill would just have to come out and verify the size of those.
So many caliber inches.
See, when mitigation is done, it's calculated on a number of inches of diameter of the tree. Now, and that's not going to equal the diameter perhaps of that tree, but there is a requirement for per acre on a per acre basis, and Bill can satisfy.
Also not measure those and see how much more you'd have to add.
And a crepe myrtle usually does not qualify. It's not a canopy tree.
Is there a possibility for us to pay for a tree to be planted somewhere else in the community? Because the lot is very small.
We understand that.
We saw that.
And we would love for you to be able to do that, and we appreciate that offer. That capability has been taken away for the time being, not by us.
That's unfortunate.
We didn't do it. Not guilty, Your Honor.
Very unfortunate.
Council removed that from our ordinance,
We did,
council.
oh. So these guys are the ones that are the bad guys.
Yes, right. Not us.
Yeah, don't point too high. Below the rate.
The name tags, he's looking at name tags.
But that, I mean, that does make sense for us to be able.
Yes, it
It
does.
does.
Awesome.
And it's
And
been
that
there a
was-
long time.
And that was good of you to make that suggestion or offer. And it doesn't go unnoticed.
We appreciate that. The tree does have a significant defect, being a codominant, that, and the fissure that exists down the side that we're looking at right now presents real potential problems for the future, I think. Perhaps someone else can add to
No,
that.
that's right. No, the fact that it's codominant with a very narrow angle in between, which is caused that included bark, the long stretch of darkened wood that runs about 4 feet down it, indicates that it could be. It's not necessarily, but it could be structurally unsound, so that one of those might peel away. And so with that in mind, I think structurally the tree should be removed, is my opinion.
What, anything to add?
No, I think Danny pretty much touched on it.
Make that as a motion then?
Yeah, so I move that the pine tree with the codominant pine tree in the backyard be removed.
And then,
Do the required mitigation.
Yeah, pardon me, with required mitigation as the town mandates.
And that Bill will take care of checking with you on that to see that it's all covered and that you're doing the right thing.
But, and the mitigation is canopy trees need to be used, okay.
But I'll ask a question too, find out, if you talked about it, but, we can't make you put money in bank, but the one, if you could put money in the bank, it's volunteer.
I mean,
Or something.
it's not gonna change the situation, so it can't be applied to the.
And, you know, there's that wonderful, I guess it's a cemetery behind you that's very wonderfully wooded. Can they not, if it's immediately adjacent, is there a way for them to plant on that? If it impacts their property?
I think that's a landscape buffer back there, so I don't believe they're supposed to be planting anything in there without approval from the HOA.
No, I understand, but if they got all that approval and they would, I'm trying to find them a way to plant a tree without negatively impacting their property. If they could plant back there in a way that where the crown might impact their property with approval from all the appropriate people, is that permissible?
We could look into that.
I mean, that's a possibility.
Yeah.
That's plant 20 trees in her yard anyway.
I mean, because we have a maple that's trying to get tall, but it's only growing on one side right now. And then there are 2 other trees in the backyard that are big besides that.
yes, we've seen it. We were there. The maple's doing okay. All right, I don't even know if we had a second on the motion.
Second.
All those in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, say nay. Motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you for your service.
Thank you.
Thank
Certainly
you.
welcome.
Y'all are on schedule back to that because we put it, everybody's on schedule with the date they come in to the, okay, why? It made sense to have them both together.
Next is Sean McBride and his bride, perhaps, 104 4 Ryan Drive.
Morning. Good morning.
We have several trees that are right up against our house. In total, we have 25 trees on less than half an acre. And, the ones that are to the far corner are the ones that are the most dangerous up against our house. We've had to replace our roof. Every storm, my children sleep downstairs because the 2 bedrooms are up against that. And it's scary. And we currently have more damage to the roof and the back of the house from the pines dropping. We have paid to have the pines pruned before in the past, to have damaged pieces taken down. And yet there were still, fractures in some of the limbs, and they still continue to fall throughout the years. We initially had those trees right in the back. They were at one point in time, we had 5 of them approved to be taken down. That was right after the ice storm, and every arborist in the area was very, very extremely expensive, and we could not. Now we financially have the means to do so. We're hoping that you guys let us.
I remember you telling us that about how the cost went up after the ice storm, which is just so blatant and so unreasonable and so not even understandable.
It was.
Right, it wasn't even high quality work, they were just cleaning up and.
The permit's always good for 6 months, and then you get a 6-month extension or with no problem, it's solving that. You got a year.
Well, we were.
6 years.
Yeah. And with the, we don't really have anybody to tell us how homeowning goes, even as far as checking, the water heater. We're learning it all as we go.
So tree 1 in the front there, our main issue with that one is the amount of sand produces onto our vehicles. How many all came out, should you guys said.
Hmm.
And we were contemplating cutting the limbs going over that way, but since it hangs on the power line side, there's no limbs over there, just the limb of the street for the most part.
Okay, we spent a long time in the yard, so we pretty much understand what the issues are. So
I don't know. I look at trees, was it 2 and 3, they're awfully close to the house. If I was in that situation, I'd be a little concerned about that as well, especially if they're dropping branches and continue to damage the roof. 4 and 5, they're a little bit further away from the house. Do y'all still have issues with those as well?
It's less than 6 feet, I want to say, right up against from the house. 4 and 5, they have dropped and damaged onto our chimney. We're having to have the wood replaced on that. There are a total of 7 trees right there, just in that corner.
Right. Yep.
And then if you count right on the other side of the fence, the neighbor has like 5 planted on her side. So it's just, it's scary.
Yeah, and then I think Bill noted that on tree number 5, the top was broken out many years ago, but it's healthy now, but still, that may be a concern as well.
I agree on that with number 5. Going 1 to 5, then my take on the number 1, there was a very large branch that on that, it's not too visible right here, that was probably spending most of its time, its business end over that car. And I wondered, since that is a less common tree, that's a longleaf pine, if we couldn't see it from moving that one large branch that reaches over, there's the one that had something strung on it, perhaps a child was swinging, I don't know, it wasn't for deliveries. And to look at it with respect to that. I agree about 2 and 3. 3, of course, is the best tree in the yard. And we had to turn sideways to go around the porch and it to get to look at 4 and 5. So,
It's less than a foot
Yeah,
away
it's-
from the
it's pretty
house, from the
close.
foundation.
and 5 is with the bad top is, it had recovered, but it's still pretty nasty. And again, a real potential being all crowded in there like that. 4, that is. No, 5, right. 4 is leaning more toward the neighbor's yard. Yeah. And I don't feel a great need to have that removed to alleviate the situation, or the removal of 2, 3, and 5 will create the relief that you need, I think, to a large degree. But that's just my take. Any?
Yeah, well, I agree. It looks to me like 2, 3, and 5 could be removed. But if we could direct our attention to tree number 1, if the issue with it is that it's dropping sap on your cars, which I understand is a problem, I have to wonder, you don't know from which limb in particular it's dropping sap? Because it's probably just one, is my guess. I can't say for sure, but but I'm wondering that if you're looking at the tree, if you took off from the bottom moving up those first 3 limbs that overhang that area, that's not going to negatively affect the health of the tree, and that might solve the sap problem. So that, whenever someone comes, if this board should say, we really don't want you to remove one, that you could remove the others, have that one pruned. It really wouldn't cost much, if they're there. It wouldn't cost that much. I don't want to put a price on an arborist's mouth. And see if that doesn't solve the problem. If it doesn't, and it remains to be a problem with any of them that are left, you can always come back. But I think that I could support 2, 3, and 5, and then if they choose to prune 1.
Any more discussion?
That sounds like a good idea.
And so 2, 3, and 5, and not 4?
I think 4, right? Yeah, that's what I said. Can we see a picture of 4?
They're up photo? Yeah. Okay. Now I'll take any that you let me.
Right.
4 is, these pictures are not going to demonstrate it, but 4 truly was leaning away from your property.
Mhm.
It was leaning, if it was going to challenge anything, it was going to challenge your neighbor's yard.
And we had a lot of 4's limbs already taken off.
Number 4,
We do, yeah, we do have. I did bring 2 photos of some nightmarish, if you guys wanted to see.
Elm
But yeah,
Street type.
some torpedoes,
Mm.
that's what I call them. When they broke, we got 22 holes in our house.
Ice storm.
Yeah,
These pictures are from yesterday.
and then we have one current one from a torpedo that I call them the time torpedoes. When they break and they just come down and they're just so solid.
You
So,
have to come down straight, it's a problem.
yeah, they do, they come down straight. So we are having to have more roof work done on our back porch, which is a part of our foundation.
Was tree 4 a culprit in those torpedoes? It was.
Yes, that's why part of it is missing, because at the time, we paid as much as we could to get as much work done as we could.
Right.
But I was unemployed at the time and a baby and.
Yeah.
So it was unfortunately not in our cards at the moment. But now this moment, it is.
Good.
And these pictures were taken when?
With the ice storm. Yeah, we have a lot of trees packing in on that. It's less than a half acre. We have 25 trees.
Looking at tree 4, it looks like a lot of the branches are on the away from the house now. So I don't know if y'all pruned off quite a few of the ones towards the house. But even now, just looking at it, it looks like it could probably stand some more pruning. I don't know if there's some dead branches up in the top or not. It's kind of hard to tell, but it'll probably be on some ongoing maintenance to kind of keep it as safe as possible, so you don't have other branches coming down.
Sorry.
Is he looking for these pictures?
Not quite down the street, but it's pretty ugly.
Quite terrifying. At the time, we had an infant and then our daughter. So I think it has given me some serious PTSD. So anytime we have like decent storms or even the heavy lightning, I bring all the children downstairs
Yeah.
and we have a wow in the living room.
As I look at these photographs and you all look at it with me and correct me if I'm wrong, if I look at tree number 4 and the photograph shows that it doesn't have a great deal of taper.
Great deal.
A great deal of taper,
Oh, okay.
it's stronger if it's tapered.
Well, it's all
small
bunched
down.
up in there like that. probably.
And truthfully, it looks as though it may be more narrow, lower than it is higher.
Say that
I'm
again?
It may have less diameter slightly at a lower elevation than it does as it gets up higher, which is,
Yes.
different from what you would ordinarily see. So, and I'm gonna guess that is because it has been shielded from the sun by two, 3, and 5.
And more, well, certainly 3 and 5 maybe being more vigorous than being a nutrient drain as
Right.
well. A competition.
So, with that in mind, and the fact that that they have 25 other trees on their property, is that right? 25, I suppose with these? That it may not be unreasonable to approve the removal of number 4. So to remove 2, 3, 4, and 5, keep 1, to remove 2, 3, 4, and 5, keep 1 in hopes that some pruning might solve that problem. Don't know what you all think about that.
I mean, that seems reasonable to me. Again, when trees are that close to the house, you got, like they say, lightning and windstorms, ice storms, everything else that can come along. It just makes sense to me, especially if some of the trees are compromised because of the health of the tree or their structure, to go ahead and let them come down.
Yeah, I mean, pine trees near a house is not necessarily a hazard. I mean, it's just not, my house is just encircled with pine trees, very close to it. And they've been there, knock on wood, since Hurricane Hugo. The pine trees can be very strong trees and contrary to what the popular myth is. But here they've grown so closely together that they've actually hurt each other's growth patterns. So,
Well, and also when they grow together like that, their root system then is stronger because they are intertwined.
well,
it-
sometimes that's the case. That's right. That sometimes that is the case.
But that doesn't help with the breakage that you're
With the
thinking. of.
breakage.
You want to make that as a motion?
Well, if there's, so I move that we allow the removals of trees 2, 3, 4, and 5. With a recommendation that the homeowners look at possibly pruning the other.
Second.
Go ahead.
Second.
Motion has been approved. Is there any more discussion? Any more thoughts?
Thank you guys
Thank you very much.
so much.
We still have to
Thank
vote.
you guys so much.
We still have to
greatly
vote.
appreciate
Let us vote.
We still have to vote, but
it.
there's no more discussion. So all those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. Motion passes.
Okay, now, thank you guys so much. We greatly appreciate it. Thank you.
You're welcome. Next order of business is 199 Angora Way. Good morning.
Thank you. Morning.
One is for you. As you've done in the last minute.
My concern is the pine tree. I have two trees that are close to each other. The gray oak is leaning towards the cemetery or towards the fence. I don't think it poses a problem. I don't want to touch that. The pine tree next to it, I know is healthy. However, as the previous person said, limbs can come off in storms and be like a torpedo. It is 13 feet away from my foundation. It is 5 feet away from the pergola. Behind the pergola is all windows. I have a glass door and 4 windows. My husband is handicapped. His chair is located in close proximity to that. He cannot move quickly. Our bedroom is on the other side of the pergola. So if anything comes off of this pine tree, in all likelihood, we will be injured, if not killed, as well as the house being damaged. I am trying to be proactive. I am trying to take care of a problem before one exists. I understand that you want to preserve trees. I'm not in the habit of killing trees either, but I have to protect my home. I have to protect my husband and myself. And that's why I would like to have this pine tree taken down. I did come to you 2.5, 3 years ago. I wanted both trees down at that point because the live oak has also broken my fence back there. At which point I was told, no, I could not take either one of them down. And that was it. I am trying again because we have had a limb come off the pine tree. It did fall onto the cemetery side. Thank the good Lord, that's just an egress road, so nobody was hurt or injured or anything, but I just want to be able to make my home safer. I also don't want to I have a rider for my insurance because the house is so close to a tree. You know, I would like the tree down. I would like the pine tree down. That's my concern. It's close proximity to my house. It's for our well-being as well as my house well-being. And I would gladly plant another tree, but I'm not going to be able to plant one the girth of this tree because the girth is rather large. I did have it pruned 2.5 years ago, in which we did have limbs removed from the top. I know we have discussed possibly pruning it again, but again, if you have a bad storm or a bad hurricane and a limb, or if it gets hit by lightning, and good Lord, it's tall enough that it certainly could get hit very easily. You know, you have high winds, those it's not going to come straight down like a torpedo. Either that it will go right through the roof of my house, or it can swing around and it could do damage to my house. It could do damage to my neighbor's house. I just feel that it is more of a liability than an asset.
All right. We've had lots of discussions about this, as
I have.
we know.
When the lots are this small, how does one mitigate appropriately, considering the size of that tree and the inches that you might be talking about?
It's difficult and we take that into consideration. And we want to mitigate what is reasonable.
I mean, I would gladly plant a little maple tree or something, but it's not going to be the size of this pine tree. I can't, you know, it's
No, the lots are very small anyhow, we realize that, and
exactly.
what we would want to have would be a canopy of some sort. that would include a pine tree, but people aren't probably planting too many pine trees as mitigation trees, although there's nothing wrong with them. They're all gonna be gone someday. But an oak tree, hickory tree, things like this, a maple might not be a good choice. They have trouble in open areas. They're a good wood tree, but you're talking about a southern red maple, but yes, something. And as Bill said, it would not be required to, it's
Right.
unrealistic to.
Right.
But that's a required tree on your property in terms of and was had to be left there when are you the first owner of the house?
No, I'm the third owner of the
Oh, wow.
house.
Okay. Well, that's,
To be honest with you, when I moved in, the second owner had done very little to maintain anything. And it was so overgrown, and I took out 45 bags of pine straw. So I didn't even notice these trees until a year into me being there.
hmm,
And then all of a sudden, it's like I had to replace the roof on the pergola because of damage. And it was like, this is a threat. This is something that I feel I need to try and control.
I understand. And we hear this a lot, as you might well know, and I can appreciate. Thoughts? Danny, since you visited it twice, how?
Yeah,
Danny back, to look at it
right.
yesterday.
Go ahead.
No, I'll,
I was say the tree, as we've said, is very, very healthy. It's got excellent taper. As best I could tell, looking at the limbs are none of those limbs in a straight drop, I think, would hit the pergola. I may be wrong. It was hard to get the right angle, but it looked like a straight drop would not hit the pergola. There is a limb in this photograph. It's the first one that we see that has a downward curve as the limb leaves the trunk. That has a C-shaped curve, and I don't know that it's weak, but that could be removed, and the rest of them look like decent branch attachments, so that you can't ever predict what's going to happen with the weather.
Right.
You can't,
I want a guarantee, and there is none.
right. And so that what we have to look at is, well, what is the health of the tree look like, and what is the potential for failure? And I don't see I don't see anything overwhelming that this tree is going to fail. That your neighbor's tree certainly would fail at some point in the future because of the way that codominant stem was grown. That if you had it pruned 2.5 years ago, if someone evaluated this tree every 2 years or so, or you watch it, and if you see a limb starting to die back or to become weaker, and then call the appropriate arborist to deal with it, I think this tree is as safe as anyone in Somerville. That's my thought. I understand very much your concerns. I mean, I do. I do. But given, we weigh one against the other, this tree does not show me any cause for concern.
How much can I prune then?
I don't know that we can dictate. Can we dictate that? I don't. Right. I didn't know what ordinance, if the ordinance specified anything. I wouldn't prune on that tree. I wouldn't prune anything on that side other than that one limb that I told you about, and I can circle it on here for you.
I think I know which.
Well, you know which one we're talking about.
And then once an arborist is in there, if that arborist finds anything else that's weak or diseased or damaged, most certainly prune those. But these, based on what I saw yesterday and looking at these photographs, these look like really good, strong limb attachments to me. So for the health of the tree, as Bill said, you don't want to prune any more than 20% at one given time anyway. And you couldn't do that with this tree without, really doing it harm. So minimal pruning should solve, won't solve your concerns. It will, help to make the tree, those tree limbs less likely to fail. That's the best way for me to say it. But I don't know what the rest of the board feels. That's what I see as I look at this.
Rod?
Pine trees do some self pruning too. Those bottom branches that you talk about falling and yeah, that is the nature of a pine for those bottom limbs to eventually fall as they die back.
But not on my house and not on my pergola. Thank you very much.
Well,
That's the inspection that was just referred to, that you can see where things are dying, and a branch dies, it needs to be pruned, yes. Unless it's in the woods or somewhere where it's not gonna challenge something, you can anticipate that. It doesn't happen overnight. What happens overnight is a big violent thunderstorm tears something out of the tree and sends it flying. The branch that Danny was speaking of, is one you and I have spoken about and looked at, and that's why I brought the picture so you can see this. It's a pretty good shot. I don't mind saying I took it with my phone. That is the only one that has a questionable branch attachment. It's also the largest one. That even, everybody else is going toward the cemetery except the tippy top. But no, never ignore.
Unless we have winds of 70 miles per hour.
Well, I don't know.
I don't know either. Like I said, I'm just trying to protect my home and my family.
I understand. And
And I can't, forgive me, but I cannot appreciate the life of a tree over human life. I just can't.
Well, no one on
We
this,
don't either.
no one on this board can either. But
None of
we,
us.
we have some,
And you keep saying you certainly can come back if you have other issues, and I appreciate that. But what are the other issues? When the damage is done? When one of us is in the grave? I mean, I'm sorry, but
now that's a little harsh. No one here,
maybe it is a little bit.
well,
harsh.
it is a little harsh and a little.
And you
and a-
have to appreciate where
I-
I'm coming from.
I do very much appreciate where you're coming from. And my point, and what I'm saying is that we appreciate it and that you, if you do as suggested and look at the tree, when you see a limb starting to brown out from the tips, then, or look damaged, then you make some emergent move to do something about it. And you, if the question, you come back, you can come back if you have one limb fail every 6 months. If you've got a couple that start doing that, then that's when you come back and say, look, this tree, you were wrong. This tree is unhealthy. And here's a letter from my certified office that says this tree is unhealthy and it needs to come down. That's what I mean by you can come back.
Okay.
Both of us dealing with reason here.
Okay.
right, and one thing is that I'm noticing is that if that was pruned 2.5 years ago and no one's touched the tree since.
Yeah.
The lowest branch on that tree is as green as everyone else on there, which again speaks to the health and vigor of that tree. Yeah, if there's any hint of acceleration of any sort, certainly, as Danny said, that's a whole new ballgame. Trees don't live forever. We don't live forever. Things start to happen. Please appreciate our side that we would like to wait out healthy individuals to speak to us differently, that is trees, before we arbitrarily remove their potential damage ability. It's a tough.
As you and
fight.
I have had a conversation, I do appreciate that. I do.
And I
It's a
thank you.
little harder to swallow with acres being removed. all
I
over the
understand
place.
that. We've had that discussion too.
Exactly. So, all right. I thank you for your time.
And I thank you for your time as well and
and your
patience.
patience.
Do we have a motion? Well, there is a motion. Is it adequately written, Becca?
Yeah, no, I move that we deny removal of the pine tree
And encourage,
and encourage periodic maintenance and inspections and pruning as needed. Second.
the motion has Voted on. Any further discussion? All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Motion passes. Thank you once again. And-
I'll come by and maybe you please. Thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome. I didn't pick the best day to do this. Because it's run so late. I'm wondering if I ought to delay it for the next meeting.
You can make a motion to defer it.
Yeah, because this is a good, this should be, this is about Mrs. Riley's tree.
Right.
And I honestly think it's an opportunity to have a discussion of merit about what we do, about how things happen, how decisions are made, and I may be making a mountain out of a molehill, tempest in a teapot, I don't know.
Well, I've got plenty of time if everyone else does, but that's,
Well, I don't want to make that decision for everybody. Normally, we don't have this many trees.
Or lengthy discussions.
Let me at least give the photos that I have made. And I was wrong. Jesse had that stuff all put together and you put it up here and I don't even know why I didn't notice.
Thank you.
Put it all there for you, so you can know that it was all there.
I know you did. Now I do. You even got some extras. Well, I guess you need to, can anybody hang here a little later?
Yeah, I'm good.
We can, yeah.
Everybody else?
Do you need a,
You pay us.
oh, we're not. Oh, that's right.
They do. They can't be on the board.
Can't be on the board.
So we at your service.
hey,
While it's still fresh, I guess it's the best time. I start with the letter from Nathaniel Rice of Southern Roots. I asked everyone to read it again more closely, which I think everyone has, because I waited till the last minute. And I had some issues with it, but I sort of like to back up on this whole thing and how it came to pass. Because this individual sought a tree permit for the one tree that you've all seen. The one that was sort of leaning. Along with 4 other fairly significant trees. It was delayed, I think, because the application wasn't visualized soon enough. And it became sort of a hurry up thing. Is that a fair assessment? Bill? That all of a sudden you sort of wanted to be in a hurry to move on with it. And you personally went to the yard to examine it and got an eminent arborist to go with you to judge all the trees. And when the discussion came up for this tree here, closest to the house, as I recall, I was told that the arborist told the owner who passed it on to you that tree committee is not going to pass that tree because it's, it's perfectly healthy. Yeah, it's got this, that, it's got a little bit of a lean, it's got all of this and so you went ahead, as you always do, and approved the ones that you totally agreed upon as being a threat and left this alone, and then it was resubmitted. But it was resubmitted and supported by the very arborist who told her initially that the tree committee is gonna, there's nothing wrong with that tree enough for the tree committee to deny that. To allow that to be cut. And yet we have this letter that talks about excuse me. It talks about a heavy lean. Is there anyone in this room who felt like that tree, there's pictures of it right there that I failed to get in the packet, that we're talking about a heavy lean. Okay, but this is how things are written. Why did Mrs. Raleigh come back? I mean, who was it that she said she was sort of okay, didn't want the tree to come down, really? She just wanted some advice. And that was initially, and then we get this letter from the same person who pretty much recognized that if the tree committee had any credence whatsoever, then if his opinion was that the tree would not be approved for removal, then it's discomforting to then have to read this letter. If I'm making myself clear that all of a sudden these issues are there that really weren't a significant thing in the past. So it's not a heavy lien in my book. Item number 2 is true. With the live crown ratio that I had, if it broke in a certain manner, but the assumption is in number 3 is assuming, a typical kind of break, which I don't think I agree with, and I don't know how you feel about it, Danny. Or Claude or Faye, that this is necessarily going to break in the fashion. It is true that if that thing fails and goes in the direction of the house in any which way, it's going to do some serious damage. Just as the tree we just finished speaking about. And I think it assumes an unlikely fall. And only reason I'm spending time on this is because this fellow has building a reputation in town. He's very intelligent. His crews do really good work. He actually was the one who cut this tree down because they had to let his cutter go, and I was pretty impressed with that. Because that was a tough job, dropping those bolts by rope. The things with, the tree's been there forever. So the talk about being in a poor environment, it's hedged in with the road and the foundation.
We had the other one with the trailer earlier, Arbor's letter.
Yeah.
It was a lot of the same talk. So we get a lot of these Arbor's letters that are exaggerated in favor of taking the tree down. What you're getting.
Yes.
Not this Nathaniel.
Oh, no, yeah, no, he's I had totally civil discussions with him 5 times that day. I went back as that tree was going down. But it just brings up, before I forget it, the point that you have made repeatedly is that if he's a certified arborist, which he says he is, and he's got a number and everything, then he's also taken an oath to protect trees. This, I think, is a classic example of when maybe his temptation got away with it. I don't know if he probably has a good business, but, he's basically talking us into having the tree removed for reasons that, as it turned out, weren't even there. Other than its potential as this last pine tree that we dealt with, once again. So which side of the fence are you on? And that's a difficult place to be for someone like that. I appreciate that, but this just sort of bothered me. I think it was a well-written letter, but I think it's not truthful. And you're waiting like a coiled spring to say something, Danny. So my last point about the letter is the same thing we always hear. The potential for destruction of the home and life. And that, just like you said, that was pretty rough.
If you
forget
pay-
the word you used, but
No, it's artfully written. It just ain't true.
is it right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
that-
well, he does a good letter.
ain't
Yes,
true.
he does a good letter.
If you take some of those to heart, that we hear often, that people would want us to remove all trees. We would have nothing taller than border grass.
That's what we try and say without saying it that way.
Yeah, this is true. Well, since we are not in a meeting right now,
We are.
well, you know what I mean.
Still alive.
Okay, there's still, okay.
So-
But that's what I said was still true.
It's our obligation, I think, and I think the town recognizes this because of the way they've constructed the board with people from certain disciplines. It's our obligation to look at these arborist letters and decide on their credibility. And, you know, are they
I
Are they
agree.
100% accurate? Are they 100% inaccurate? Or are there truths in there? Because to determine, it is our obligation, as I see it, to determine whether or not someone, an arborist, has presented a clear enough case, citing science on whether or not a tree should be removed. And this letter does not. I mean, he talks about, if this happens, it's certainly going to take out the root. Unquestionably, if that tree fails, it's going to do it. But by his own admission in this letter, the tree is healthy. It's just that if this happens, that's going to happen. It has, he claims that it is growing in a limited environment. Well, you know, all those streets are far enough away that there's ample root system for those trees. The house is close, yes, but that's only what 1/4 or less of the root system of the tree. So he just is not making a case based
No.
on science. I think
He's
he
looking
did-
for excuses.
More on
he was looking
motions.
for a reason to remove the tree, and I think he was giving in to the request of the family, of Miss Riley's family, who I think wanted to have the tree removed. They were concerned for her. But that's our obligation, as I said, to look at these letters and decide whether they make any sense or not.
But as doing a risk assessment on that tree you had street with traffic and pedestrian walking on it. That tree had a house, that tree had a sidewalk, that tree had a driveway with parked cars in it. So it had a lot of risk in the evaluation, risk evaluation, so you know it was a healthy tree. Where the last one we had here, the healthy tree, that you had a pergola in the back, a patio in the back, which, you know, somebody sit back there every day, or did they sit back there once a week or once a month, you know? It did have protection over it for small limbs. But most of its weight and load was over that cemetery or back the other way, or in that
Mhm.
upper area. So its risk is very low. You follow where I'm.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's a,
So those are things we have to look at also, not just the, in the arborist letter. When you have protection, when you're looking at a risk management.
well, that's,
Done risk management with, ISA, and you look at all of those things, and they got a little formula, you figure all of this stuff out. It's complicated. And it's, you come up with your last, but all those state factors, and they all get points.
that's exactly what our last discussion was, me and Nathaniel. And he viewed this tree, even though in his own words, I don't know if it's a year, it could be 10 years. What doesn't change is, no, I'm not totally exactly quoting, but what doesn't change is the risk assessment score of this tree based, if nothing else, on what the damage would be if it were to fail. And that was, and that's significant. And he cited the matrix and everything else. He went through all that you just did. And,
The heart rot
okay, well, I'm going to get to that.
is what you
Right.
more or less thought was gonna happen to that tree. You thought it had it because of the clumps on the side. of
Right.
it. And that made it a lot higher risk too.
Right, well, that's what turned our opinion.
Right.
Because otherwise, both Danny and I, for sure, I know, were not, that this was not enough because we could see this hyperbole. Granted, given the risk situation, some of that changes, surely it does. But we weren't ready to, recommend removal of that tree based on this letter. But then we did see, I guess you were there, Faye, we saw could we slide down all the way to the last slide? There's one of the conchs we saw that, of course, David, having been through so much with Red Heart, was convinced that these may have been immature conchs for Red Heart. And there was a number of them. And so there you can see another good shot from the other side. There's not much happening inside the bark. And so what Nathaniel thought this was probably because that tree had been pruned. that this could be remaining old spike marks from, from someone spiking the tree to get up there in the old days. If
Look
we,
how long that tree had the lean in it with those growth rings.
I know it's incredible. I wish I had centered it better. Incredible reaction wood pictures, but there's going to be more on the logs moving back up. Look at that.
Amazing.
So I
That's-
mean, the lean was there. It had a pretty good lean to the tree or not?
It was leaning some.
Well, that's the picture.
I mean, sometimes it's kind of hard to tell exactly from the
Yeah.
picture, but I see that.
And in my estimation, Paul, there was no reason to remove that tree
Right.
before we thought about the red heart. And, and Bill's exactly correct, of course, that when you're doing this risk analysis, the targets are a major factor. But if there's no risk, the targets are, that's immaterial.
Right.
This, I found no risk in this tree.
Mhm.
I mean, I really didn't. And, but we discovered, we saw the possibilities of red heart, and we simply made a mistake. We made a mistake. We, based upon the knowledge that we had, and the experience that we had, we thought that this was a candidate for a poor structure, which, a structural defect, which would make it a risk. And we were wrong. We did not identify red heart as we thought we were doing. And forgive me if I'm jumping the gun here, Peter, but which leads me to a request of all of us here, is that I would like to suggest that we should ask the South Carolina Forestry Commission to ask their insect and disease specialist to do a presentation for us on red heart. And the reason is that Somerville is filled with old pine trees. And this may be an issue in years to come where we really need to be able to identify red heart. And I think we should ask the I&D person or someone, whether it's Clemson Extension or the Forestry Commission, to come and do a presentation for us. And they don't have to do it personally. We can do it by Zoom meeting or whatever everyone wants to do. But I think it's critical, and I'm happy, Bill, if you want to make the contact, that's fine. I'm happy to call Francis and ask her to put it up, put this together. But I think it's something that we really need to do for the good of the community forest in Somerville.
Certainly more information, more education is good.
Yep. It's a classic example of that.
I think they'd be glad to help us.
Yeah.
With that.
You want to contact me? You want me to?
I can do that.
Yeah, yeah, that's great. What I would like to see, whether it's Zoom or in person, is I'd like to see some slides, some photographs of what red heart, signs of red heart throughout its life cycle. Throughout its life cycle, right? Thank you. And what it can do, et cetera. And it'd be great if we could do it on a day when David's going to be here, because he's got experience with it. But we'll have to get it done when we can.
Right.
Yeah, if you do that, that'd be great.
David also came by a number of times at the tree, and I didn't even do the last slide, and I still want to look at the rest of these. But first I want to say that I didn't take a slide of the stump grinder aftermath, because all I did, he was in talking with Mrs. Riley when I came back, and I knew they were finished and it was all cleaned up. And he walked over. I didn't even have to say anything. All he looked at me was because all along he was saying and probably hoping that there was root rot and there would be indications in the stump. That was some clean yellow wood there and a big old disc. And all he could say was nothing there.
Well, and he certainly didn't mention that in his letter.
No, but that was his concern. I think that was his hope once he started going down the tree.
Well, that's
and
why
there
you
was no-
write a letter. That's why a certified arborist, especially if they've got, a tree risk assessment qualification, which he does not. He does not have that qualification. You say, this is the problem. This is the defect. That's the first thing you write, is the defect. And if it fails because of this defect, here's the potential result. And he didn't mention it at all.
No, because he admitted that on first examination, there was nothing wrong. There were no defects.
I
this
didn't see
was the major defect on the slide right now. It was probably his savior in a way that something was wrong. This was some upper in the crown below the last branches. This of some of the first bolts coming out. The other side was worse in terms of the discoloration in the pith, the center, but it was blocked by another log on this trailer. It was just filled with these things. And that was further up. And so what does this have in your crystal ball that this might affect the health of the tree, the safety of the tree down the road? I don't know. But that's the only thing that was found. All the rest of the slides just show there's two more above. No, that's the first one. The second one shows a hint on a later stem ball. And
Way up in the tree, because that's a lot smaller.
yeah, that was up high. But again, it was high enough that if it snapped there, as it gone, it fell in the right direction, which was being coaxed to do, it had gone, into the roof. Anyhow, that was the only thing. I was hoping to find root rot too, because, something. There was nothing. So that's just the story.
Peter, let me ask you something, in regards to the letters the arborist put out. And, from time to time, you do see some that have been embellished or whatever you want to call it. Is there any kind of recourse that we can take as a board? Can we report things like that to ISA or?
Yes, you can.
Okay. Well, might be something we want to keep in mind if this, continues to be a pattern.
Yeah, if you've got a repeating pattern,
Mhm.
they're not going to do anything.
Right.
But they have an ethics committee and they will write him and say, hey, you're doing this.
Just make them think
Yeah,
about
oh, I
what they're
agree.
doing. Right.
I agree.
Yeah, because it's one thing to say marginal things about what may or may not be there because it's hiding, but when you start scaring people, that's different. And that's what we see a lot of. And that's hard to battle in the meeting. Like, we did a very good job with, I forget, Mrs. Dessert. I forget how you pronounce it. And the last one that was here, she's come a long way from the first time you met her, I guess. I was happy that turned out, and I hope it doesn't do anything other than what we hope will do with that state of that tree. But people are afraid and people are scared. I mean, I don't know how to.
Yeah, you kind of wonder if this is going to start causing undue mental stress on people, how that's going to affect, decisions you make as well.
That's right.
Yes, and you can't ignore that.
But the other thing we have to look at is we just have to look at these letters and it's one person's opinion where we have 5 people's opinion or 6 if
Right.
you want to throw mine in there.
Sure.
Is already evaluated the tree. So this is just one other person's opinion of the tree. And once we look at what they bring out in these and then make our evaluation on, it gives us more things to look at, but not necessarily things that are in stone.
Right,
Good
and
point.
to bring them up in a meeting with the property owner when we're face to face to help explain why we're saying what we do, not just being arbitrary. That's what we have to avoid, and that's what you've said before. They don't want to start hating. Everyone thanks us for our service. They're still doing it. That's good. I don't think I have any more to add to that. I just thought it was a good time to discuss it.
Okay.
Good. Because it has some impact and again, his reputation is growing in the town. He's gone to 2 of our most favorite clients in the past. And one after the fact, but anyhow, he's getting around town and he's very well spoken. And anyhow. Is there any other miscellaneous discussion to prolong this meeting any longer?
I don't have any.
Do I have a motion?
I move to adjourn.
Second.
All of those in favor of adjourning?
Aye.
Opposed?